Hey, Stewart's Chapel. This is Don Pierson and Don Counts, and this is Saturday's devotion, and we're in 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 1 through 7. Now the Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse, the Bethlehemite. For I have provided myself a king among his sons." And Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears it, he will kill me." But the Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Then invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. You shall anoint for me the one I name to you." So Samuel did what the Lord said and went to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, "Do you come peacefully?" Isn't it interesting? Poor Samuel. Wherever he goes, people are afraid. And he said, "Peacefully, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice." Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. So it was, when they came, that he looked at Eliab and said, "Surely the Lord's anointed is before me." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outer appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." And it goes on, Samuel, all the sons of Jesse comes by, and God keeps telling Samuel, "That's not the one, not the one." And finally, Samuel asked Jesse, "Is there another one?" And Jesse says, "Yeah, there's one more, but he's just basically a child. He's out with the sheep." And Samuel says, "Send for him." And David comes, and God says, "Him." Listen to the verse 7. The Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." It's not always as it appears. This story is kind of funny. I was working at the same Baptist camp that I was talking about yesterday in yesterday's devotion. I was working there, and me and a few of the young men from San Ignacio village were all working at the Baptist camp in Camalote. My wife came bringing some lunch, and it came out to do some things as well. And she parked the car, and she walked over to us, and she said, she wasn't there very long after got everything settled. She said, "When did you put in the speed bump?" And I'm thinking, speed bump? I don't know what she's talking about. You see, in Belize at that time, now a lot of countries have speed bumps. They would have they would create usually a bump out of concrete or asphalt. But at that time, Belize used these gigantic ropes that were used on ships. There were plentiful of them because it's a coastal country, and so they used these giant ropes. They're about the size of your leg or thigh, and they would stretch them across the road. And I guarantee it, you better slow down for those speed bumps, because there wasn't any gradual uplift. It was just a sudden bump. Well, I asked Trish, I said, "Trish, there's no speed bump." She said, "Yeah, there is. About halfway up the driveway, there's a speed bump." I said, "We didn't put a speed bump in." And she said, "Well, there's a big old rope laying across the road, and I ran right over it." And I said, "I didn't see it, about knocked my teeth out." And I laughed, and I told her, "All right, there's no speed bump. So let's go look." So we start walking down the road, and there's nothing there. She said, "I'm telling you, I ran over a speed bump." And then I realized we had this boa, this giant boa. You heard about the other boa snake in Armenia. Well, the camp had this giant boa. It was a massive boa that we just let it roam. It stayed in the fruit orchard there on the camp and around the place. It kept our other snakes and rats under control. And evidently, that boa made the mistake of getting in front of Trish. And it just lay there. It was just sunning there, probably stretched out as straight as a rope, and she ran over. Now, the boa survived. And she didn't run over its head. She just ran over it, but about knocked Trish's teeth out. The story is about what appeared. The moment Trish told me about the speed bump, I knew. I said, that's just not right. But to her, she was totally convinced that there was a speed bump in the road, when all it was a boa, a snake, a big old constrictor laying in the middle of the road. We're often like that, not with speed bumps, with a lot of things. We make decisions or judgments based on things that we think we heard, or maybe even something that we did hear, but we didn't hear it in full context. The media is really good about that, isn't it? Just giving parts of stuff to present the what they want you, or the bent that they want you to get. But we do the same thing. We'll look at someone and we'll make a judgment call based on appearance or what they say, one way or the other, and we'll make a judgment call. I'm glad that when God looks at me, His judgment is based on what He sees through Christ. None of us would be able to stand the eye of God if it wasn't the fact that He sees us through Christ. Samuel was to find a king among one family. That's a pretty easy task. One of the sons of Jesse. He didn't have to look all over Israel. He just had to go to one city in all of Israel, to one family in that city. But the problem is, it was only one son of a man who had many sons. And by the appearance, Samuel in his heart, he made a decision based on what he saw before he heard from God. The good thing is, God guarded Samuel from making a mistake. You know, He'll do the same thing with you and I if we'll let Him. The Lord doesn't look at things or look at us the way others look at us. And I'm thankful for that. Aren't you? Love you, Steers Chapel.